Welcome to Life L'Chaim. On today's show, Rabbi Thompson talks with Shari Unger and Avi Hoffman about the Dachau album, 30 watercolor paintings and more than 200 photographs from the Holocaust. We'll return right after these messages.
Joining me in the studio today is Shari Unger. Shari is here to share with us a very personal story and one of the most amazing stories that have come out recently about a document that survived with her father from Dachau. Shari, I want to thank you for being here today and sharing this story with us. I guess we should start by just showing this is something your father brought to America with him, saved throughout his life. Tell me a little about how you came to know about it and first examine it.
My recollection, to begin with, is just discovering it in his bedroom closet, most likely after his death. He never spoke about his experiences during his life. And somehow I knew that it existed. I can't say how I knew. And I recall actually sneaking into his bedroom one day when I thought nobody was around and pulling it down from the top shelf of the closet. And that's my first recollection of even encountering it.
What years was your father in Dachau?
He got to Dachau at the very end of the war. He got to Dachau in early April of 1945, about 3 weeks before the liberation.
And then he remained helping the American troops for 2 years after that.
Exactly. It took about a year and a half for them to find the only living relatives he knew he had, which were 3 uncles that had come to the United States before the war. And he was taken under the wing of American officers that were at the camp repatriating the prisoners and getting them back to as normal life as possible. And through the efforts of these American officers, after about a year and a half, they have finally located his uncles here in the United States, in New Jersey. And then the process began to make his way over to the United States.
As Shari takes the album from this leather case, I want to share with you that you're about to see one of the most unique, if not the most unique, certainly one of a kind document to survive from the Holocaust. We call it the Dachau album, I guess for lack of a better name. That name says it all. And if I may just hold it up to the camera, tell us a little bit about these items here on the front.
So, to begin with, it's a little bit difficult to see, but the leather cover is embossed with the word Dachau above replicas of my father's prison patches. Now, they are unusual for the fact that he was a Jew entering Dachau, but in fact, when he was registered at Dachau, he was not identified as a Jew in order to potentially help save his life. So he was identified and registered as a Polish political prisoner. These are replicas of his actual prison number and the patch on his uniform. The bottom corner here has a swatch of a prisoner's uniform. I don't know specifically whether it was from his personal uniform or not. And it has an emblem. To this day, we have not been able to really discern what its reference is. We've had numerous experts, both in the U.S. Army and other historians, look at this, and no one can say with any certainty what its meaning and its significance is.
So, Shari, this, I cannot imagine what this document means to you. But I think you certainly understand what this document means to the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about the content and what it means to you to know that you're looking at the daily life of your father in the camp.
Mm-hmm. the most, for me personally, one of the most remarkable things about this particular item is the fact that it brings the Jewish story and the non-Jewish story together in one artifact. The first 30 pages of the album are original artistic impressions of life and death in Dachau. And in fact, the artist was a Roman Catholic from Poland. We don't know how this Roman Catholic artist's drawings came together with my father's history. That's still a mystery that hopefully someday we'll resolve. But personally, my feeling is that this artifact and its contents can create a whole new way to study the Holocaust and bring the Jewish experience together with that of all the other people who perished during the war.
So, as you try to publicize this, I'm sure that was a major battle, deciding between your personal story and wanting to share this with the world. What do you hope that the viewer who sees this, who sees the paintings and the other pages in here, what do you want them to know? What do you want them to come away with?
Well, I think it's critically important in light of where we are today politically and throughout the world, that the Holocaust be studied not as a Jewish event, but as a human event, and to appreciate just its significance to all mankind, and to understand what triggered it and how to avoid it.
All right. Shari, I want to thank you for sharing these personal details. We can only hope that as our viewers have the opportunity in the years to come, as we're able to get more word out about the album and share the information, that it will be of solace to you to know that your father's legacy through these pages lives on. And that is really, that's a tremendous gift you've given the world. And on behalf of my audience, I want to thank you, because you have given the world a unique glimpse into Dachau, the tragedy and the horror of the Holocaust. Friends, please stay tuned. We'll be back after a short break with Rabbi Hoffman, who will discuss the research and documentation that we have been able to find out based on the Dachau album. Joining me in the studio today is Mr. Rabbi Hoffman. Many of you may recognize Avi from the many comedic and dramatic roles he's played in Jewish theater over the years. Today he comes in a much more dramatic and serious role. In our last segment you heard Shari discussing the discovery of her father's Dachau album, and Avi is here to continue the conversation. Avi, I understand that when Shari discovered the album, you were one of the first people that she contacted to share that with her. What was your initial reaction?
Well, Shari had known about the album from her childhood, but she never really brought it out to the light of the world. Until we met, living in the same neighborhood, our children going to the same school, and she approached me one day after having known me for a few years. She was that concerned about sharing this album with anybody. When she finally approached me and asked me to look at it, I was certainly interested to find out what it could possibly be, having no expectation of what I was about to see. And I remember the day vividly when she brought me to her home, went to the closet, pulled out this leather pouch, and opened, and my hands started to shake. I was so excited and scared by what I was about to see, knowing that this was going to be a very important historic artifact. And it amazes me that here we are, 67 years after the war. You'd think that everything that could be found has been found. And yet here are these artifacts, whether it's the Auschwitz album that came out a few years ago, or in our case, this Dachau album. And opening and seeing the Nazi paraphernalia, seeing the image of her father on that first page, knowing what must have happened in order for this album to become real. The artwork, to me, is the most extraordinary part of the album. There are many photographs, even the Auschwitz album, it's photographs. But never before and since the Holocaust have we found a series of 30 pieces of artwork depicting a chronological order, a documentary, so to speak, of life and death in a concentration camp such as this. It's beyond extraordinary and very important to the world.
I know that since the first time you saw the album, you've really taken this project to heart. And I know that you have traveled the world trying to do research and find out more about it. Tell us just some of those details. Where did you go? How did you even start to try to make sense of this puzzle?
Well, the most important thing was we knew much of the story of Shari's father. He was 15 years old. He was a Jewish boy from Poland. He ended up in several concentration camps and ended up in Dachau towards the end of the war. He was released. He stayed for 2 years with the American officers and eventually came to America. And certainly from the time he came to America, we know what happened. Shari was born. He committed suicide. I mean, we knew a lot about him. What we did not know anything about was the artist. We didn't even know his name. The best we could come up with was that on a few of the pieces of artwork, there were the initials MP, which gave us a little hint that at least his name, had an M and a P. And there were 1 or 2 pieces of artwork that had the full last name Perolsky, M. Perolsky. And that's where we began our investigation, almost like detective work. We started looking at websites that had, obviously Dachau was the common factor. So we went to the Dachau archives, to the websites, looking for any prisoners that may have had the name Perolsky. Interestingly enough, we didn't find it immediately on the Dachau websites. We found it in ship logs from after the war, where there was a Michael Perolsky who left in 1949 for Australia from Italy. And that is how we started our investigation. And from there, we were able to identify that there was indeed a Michael Perolsky who was in Dachau at around the same time. And then I was able to get a very generous grant from a wonderful woman named Buddy Mayer, part of the Cummings Foundation, who has been very supportive of Holocaust work over the years. And that funded our trip to Dachau. And we were able to get a camera crew, and we went to Dachau and we interviewed the director of Dachau, the people in the archives, and we found everything that they had about Shari's father and Michael Perolsky. Then we took a trip over to the ITS, the International Tracing Service in Bad Arolsen, where they have recently opened it up to the public, the largest Holocaust archive in the world. And they have an amazing computer system where they were able to identify every document in their archive about both Michael Perolsky and Arnold Unger, Shari's dad. And we learned and started to learn an amazing amount about this Catholic Polish artist named Michael Perolsky, who by a twist of fate ended up in Dachau at the same time at the end of the war as Shari's father. We still don't know how his incredible artwork ended up in Shari's father's album. And that is a continuing mystery. For every question that we answer, we end up with 5 more questions. But it was a very sad and tragic life that Michael Perolsky led. And we keep learning more and more about his life all the time.
So tell us a little bit more. What happened after he went to Australia? Did he become an artist?
Well, we don't know. Honestly, we don't know much about what he did. We know where he went. We know that he went to Australia. We don't know what he did in Australia yet. We know that he came back from Australia in the 70s and went back to Poland, back to Germany, and somehow was constantly, he was in very bad medical condition. He was sick, he was penniless, and he kept writing letters to the German government begging for financial support. And he kept writing the letters to the wrong place, and they kept writing him back saying, you need to write here, but he never quite got it. And he ended up dying in the middle of England, in a small village in England where his obituary stated that he was employed as a painter of bridges. So we have not found any subsequent artwork post-war. We have been able to identify through our connections with the Associated Press, who wrote a very extensive article about this. We were able to identify a cousin who lives in Warsaw still, and in her basement she had artwork of Michael Perolsky's from before the war. And so we don't know everything yet. That's part of what we're still trying to find out, is what happened to him? What did he do in Australia? Did he continue to identify himself as an artist?
Friends, please stay tuned. After this short break, we're going to continue exploring the history behind the Dachau album. Welcome back with more on the Dachau album. Rabbi Hoffman sharing with us some of the details. We talked about the history, this complex, it's not a history, it's really a mystery.
Enormous mystery.
for the viewers who will soon be able to see these pictures online and take a much more active role in helping perpetuate the role of the Dachau album as a document. What is the message of these pictures? I mean, the first time you looked at these amazing pencil drawings, I guess I'm not sure.
Ink and paint drawings, watercolors, they are extraordinary. The images are, as the director of Dachau put it, they are beyond unique. There is nothing like this anywhere in the world. Nothing like this has ever been seen. What makes it truly extraordinary, the artwork, out of the many things that make it extraordinary, is the simplicity of it, in a way. They're very detailed, and yet they are incredibly simple in their depiction.
Tell us about the color. Remember,
yes.
Tell us about the color.
Well, one of the experts in Dachau actually pointed out that there is color in the first image. As the prisoners are coming into the camp, they are depicted in color, oranges and browns. But once they're in the camp, everything becomes muted, gray and light blue. And there is no color except one image where a prostitute is brought into the camp to go to one of the commandants. And all the prisoners have to stand bowing to the prostitute.
Right, and they take their hats off.
They have to take their caps off. She is in color. So the artist was able very ingeniously to show that life outside the camp had color, and life inside the camp was gray. The idea that there is no judgment. You know, one of the things about Holocaust art is that most post-war art depicts the Nazis as evil monsters, and the prisoners as these innocent, lambs brought to the slaughter. In these 30 pieces of artwork, there is no judgment, which is what leads us to believe that the artist was doing it on behalf of the Nazis, because the Nazis are depicted as people doing their job very efficiently. So it's an extraordinary opportunity in showing this artwork to the world, to not only create exhibits, artwork exhibits that can travel around the world, not only creating educational materials. We have never found anything like this. We have the Diary of Anne Frank, which has served as a wonderful tool to teach young people about the Holocaust for many years. But it's time, I think, to find new tools. And this, without saying a word, teaches any age group from kindergarten up about this experience. Obviously, some of the images are not appropriate for younger people, but you can show younger people certain of these images. There are 30 pieces of art. A documentary film, which we're working on, we have footage from Germany, we have footage from Bad Arolsen, we have footage from the United States of America. There's a love story that Shari's father had a girlfriend in Dachau after the war, and they came to America together and then broke up. These images are in the album, pictures that were cut in half. Perhaps a feature film someday. There is such an amazing wealth, a treasure of information that can be shared with the world out of this one album. Even the cover, it's leather. Was the leather taken from the uniform of a Nazi SS officer, as one of the people in Munich surmised? So there's so much we can bring to the world, and we hope to share it with everybody.
So, Avi, what do you think in the short run, what will be our best effort to begin to use these images as educational tools? What can we do?
Well, I think the Flame Society is a perfect organization to help us with this work, with this important work. We would like to associate ourselves through the Flame Society with a major educational organization, perhaps Harvard, which has a very large Holocaust archive, or Yale or NYU, which can help us to develop the educational materials for every age level, all the way up to thesis work and doctoral theses. That would be the educational side. Exhibits, once again, the Flame Society can help us to work with exhibitors who can help us put together the exhibit that can travel all over the world. The documentary film, we need to solicit contributions so that we can finish and edit this documentary film, and those can go through a nonprofit organization such as the Flame Society. So I'm hoping that in our association with the Flame Society, we can continue doing this important work.
Great. Avi, I want to thank you for sharing this information.
My pleasure.
Friends, if you'd like to learn more about the Dachau album, please visit theflamesociety.org and click on the page tab for the Dachau album.
That's it for this edition. For more information on our show, please visit us on the web at tolifelchaim.com. I'm Lee Lazarson. Thank you very much for joining us. And to life, l'chaim.